This episode of the Old Boy Podcast, I am joined by Cody Stamann. Cody is a UFC fighter. He tells us all about his background. He has this huge fight coming up June 8th, coming off a bicep injury that's had him sidelined for a year. He is fired up. He is ready to go. But what I even loved more about than his spirit is his story. Talking about how his dad brought him up with that hard blue-collar work ethic and how he's turned that into wrestling and then a little bit of boxing and then melding all that together for a great MMA career. Hope you enjoy the episode.
Man, do you hear that? Look at here. They're coming. They're coming. We're going to have a party.
Thank you guys for joining us for this episode of the Old Boy Podcast. I am joined with Cody the Spartan Stamann from the UFC, getting ready to come in June 8th, Louisville, for a fight night. Cody, welcome.
Good to be here, man.
Yes, sir. So we were talking a little bit about the fight you've got coming up June 8th in Louisville. Everybody's going to be able to watch that on ESPN, right?
Yeah, it'll be on ESPN. A lot of people coming down from Michigan to Louisville. I'm pumped.
I know it's almost going to be a hometown crowd for you, man. I mean, it's not, what's that, about a 5-hour drive, Michigan to Louisville?
Yeah. It's close to our fought to home. I mean, for the UFC at least.
Yeah.
So I feel like the people in Louisville we're gonna get along. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like we're the same kind of people.
Hey, man, they love to hunt, fish, and a good bourbon. I mean, what's wrong with that? You know what I mean? So before we get into the fight, I want to talk a little bit about your background, your upbringing, kind of what led you into MMA. I also know you've got a very blue-collar background, too. I know you've done some work in the restoration business. You got a family business that's pretty blue-collar. You like hunting and fishing. You're an old boy like the rest of us. So talk a little bit about your upbringing and kind of, what helped you find, MMA. And I know you've got a bit of a wrestling and boxing background, too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 100% country boy. My dad, my parents owned a small restoration business. I started working for my old man when I was too young to be working on a job site. That's for sure. You know what I mean? My dad was that guy. Like, he couldn't wait to get me out working. And I can think of like even younger than that. You know what I mean? Like being out in the garage at 11 o'clock at night while he's working on something, holding the flashlight for him, getting yelled at. Like my dad was that guy. Like, he was a stern, hardworking man, and like he instilled that into me at a super young age. And at the time, I hated him for it. You know what I mean? Like, damn, my dad's a prick. But now looking back, I'm like, dude, he was trying to make me a man.
Yep, he was building a man.
Yeah, I'm running power tools. I'm 8 years old. My mom's freaking out. I was actually telling the story to somebody. Like, I remember we put a big addition on our house, and I was like 10 years old. Like, can you imagine? I'm not a big guy now, so like I was a little tiny 10-year-old, and I had a full sheet of sheetrock, and I'm on a ladder. I'm on a ladder holding it, right? And he can't find the screws that he needs. He can't find the drywall screws, and I'm like, Dad, I'm up there, I'm crying. I'm like, Dad, I'm going to drop this. I'm on this, like, don't you dare drop that fucking board. I swear to God. And I'm just like, I'm like panicking, you know what I mean? And I'm in that. And I'm trying to think. And my mom was like, I think you were like 10 years old when that happened. And I was like, man, I mean, I didn't have a choice. I was going to be a fighter. If I wasn't a fighter, I was going to be like a hard ass motherfucker. There's no getting around it.
Do you looking back at that and looking back at your dad's work, is there anything that you saw like him doing the restoration business where you were just like, man, that's cool, or that's badass, or like he's really skilled?
Honestly, my old man is the most talented person I've ever met in my life. I mean, the man can do everything. He started working, like when he was like 14. No parents, like he was making it on his own as a very, very, as a young kid. Like, he had a rough life, and he could do everything. I mean, there wasn't something he couldn't do. Like, we had a contract with the city of Grand Rapids where I'm from, and like engineers came to him with problems, and he was the guy. You know what I mean? And it was like learning from him. Like, obviously, I can build a house like start to finish, really, like, honestly, like, I mean, I have a couple like Airbnbs that I do all the work. I've never hired anyone to do anything. Like, I've completely remodeled them. I I did it all myself. And like, I think about how much money I saved and how much, and even like around my house, you know what I mean? Like being able to do that stuff, people can't do that stuff anymore. You know what I mean? I can't believe it. Like, I'm from the Midwest, like people in the Midwest, like we're handy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're handy, we're tough. Like they don't make them any tougher than the people in the Midwest, I feel like. And then I come out West, I live in Las Vegas now. And like, I feel like everybody's just handicapped.
Yeah.
My sink's leaking and I don't know what to do. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know what to do?
I mean, fix that some bitch.
Yeah, like you're probably gonna need to make a trip to Home Depot. Like, what do you mean? Like, I honestly don't know what to do, and I'm just like, wow, this is insane.
No, and I think a lot of that, if you think about it, is we just don't. If you don't have a family member that's handy like that or pulls you in, like, where are these people, in this generation supposed to learn those skills? You know what I mean? Like, we don't teach them in school anymore. You don't have home ec, shop, any of that shit where you actually learn some real life skills. So, I mean, I'm not supporting it at all, but I can kind of understand where it comes from, which is a shame on the education end of things.
Yeah, shame on the education system. I mean, that's the thing. The more reliant you are on other people to take care of you, like, the less free you are. You know what I mean? That's the reality of it.
That's the God's honest truth. That is, you put that really well, Cody.
It's crippling. It's crippling. If I have to call somebody every time any little problem happens at my house or with my car or with something, I mean, obviously there's stuff that I don't want to mess with, but at the same time, like, be a man, figure it out. Go on YouTube, figure this out. Go buy some tools, figure it out. So, I mean, I'm with you, but also with YouTube and all the other things, like, figure it out. Be a problem solver in your life. There's so many people that are just like, I don't know how to do that. I'm like, well, if you can figure out, you know what I mean, how to put your car in park, you could probably figure this out too. It's not real complicated.
Absolutely, I completely agree. So, I know you love the outdoors too. Was your dad a hunter fisherman also?
Oh yeah. Gotcha. I mean, I've always duck hunted, deer hunted. Growing up in Michigan, we did a lot of fishing. My dad loved river fishing. That was something that we did a ton growing up. I trout, steelhead, salmon fished pretty consistently, like, my whole life. I don't get out there as much as I used to, but man, the river is just, it's a surreal place for me. Like, that's like one of the happiest places, I could be outside of holding the shotgun, shooting ducks and geese. That is the apex for me. Like, I mean, I've shot big game all over the place, but I don't know what it is about killing birds, but I love doing it. I'm a big waterfowl guy.
Yeah, it's fun. We've got a duck camp in Arkansas that we go to every January, and it's just something too about just getting in that blind and yeah, man, just hanging out with the boys and chit chatting and talking. We've had a couple fighters, come hunt with us. Hendos came a couple of times.
Yeah, actually, I hunted with him. In Northern California, like a couple months ago.
That's awesome. Yeah,
great dude.
Yeah, Dan's really good people, and man, I think he loves hunting as much as he did fighting.
Yeah, I think he loves hunting more, honestly.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
So speaking of fighting, at what age did that kind of appeal to you, or was it more the wrestling that kind of got you into it?
No, I mean, honestly, I never intended on being like a professional fighter. Like, I really loved, like, growing up, I loved playing football. I've always been like a really good athlete. I thought wrestling was for pussies. Like, there's no way you were ever going to put me in that singlet. Like, I'm not doing that. But I mean, I was a scrappy kid. Like, some, like, people talk about, like, how I ended up being a fighter. I'm like, because that's how I saw problems, like, from a very young age. I mean, I can think back to, like, being, 6 years old and, like, being ready to scrap somebody. If I felt like they disrespected me or my mom or anybody, like, I was ready to fight. And I've just always been like that. And then, I think I got like an after school detention that ended up being my principal. He was the wrestling coach. So instead of like me having to do an after school detention, like, he literally made me put a singlet on and go and wrestle. You know what I mean? And I got thrown around. I didn't like it. So I went back the next day and, like, I'm coming back to get revenge on these guys. And that's literally how I ended up wrestling. And then the boxing background, my on my mom's side, a lot of professional boxers in my family. So I boxed a little bit when I was really young, and didn't really care too much for boxing. I was naturally pretty good at it, but And, as soon as wrestling ended, I jumped in the Golden Glove State tournament. I ended up winning it. That first year I did it. And, with a wrestling and boxing background, it was just like the natural evolution to, going into MMA. MMA kind of started blowing up, and still, like, I still have, like, I'm not really like trying to be a fighter. Don't really care much about fighting, but it started like popping up in my local area. And we went and watched. I went and watched with a couple buddies, and I was telling my buddies, I'm like, I'll whoop all these dudes. These guys suck. I will whoop. So it's literally like, it ended up being like a dare thing. Like, my buddies were like, prove it, dude. Get in there. Get in there and scrap with these guys. And I was like, all right. So I like went and talked to somebody. I'm like, yo, how do you fight? I want to fight. And that's how it started. I walked into MMA. I was fighting like the next weekend, and the first time I stepped in an MMA gym, I had no idea what the hell was going on. I'm like, listen, I'm the man. I'm gonna whoop everybody. And I went into an MMA gym like Monday, and I was fighting like that Friday. And they were like, and the first time I'd been in an MMA gym, and they were like, well, let's see what you got. And I was like, okay. And I started scrapping with some guys, and I'm like, this is a lot harder than I thought it was. This is actually a crazy, terrible sport. And I did it once, and I went up there, I knocked the dude out in like 7 seconds. Like, first shot I threw, I just fell in love with it. It just took over my whole life.
That's wild that the way it came about. You know what I mean? Like totally not planned it on. It was one of those things when I was preparing for our discussion. I mean, you fought a lot amateur. What were you, like 17-1 amateur before you really even came into pro?
Yeah.
And 19, so I'm like
19-1, I had a ton of fights. I just like fighting now. I was like, be in there every chance I could get. I'm like, dude, let's fight. This guy thinks he's good. Let's fight. Let's find out.
And that's, sometimes when you look at those numbers, like, this isn't a guy that was led by the hand by a manager on, here's how we're going to manage your career. This is a dude that just wants to fucking fight. You know what I mean? Like, and guess what? I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep beating guys. And if opportunities open up, well, I'm going to go beat that guy. Is that kind of the way you looked at it?
Yeah. I mean, I was 14-1 before I signed with a manager as a professional. So I had 35 fights. Like, I was just like, I want to fight that guy here. I want to fight this guy. I mean, I did it all on my own, because I didn't really understand how the game worked yet. You know what I mean? I'm just a scrappy kid.
So at those numbers, if you were 14-1 pro, so you really didn't sign with a manager until you did a UFC deal, right?
Yeah. I mean, literally, I like the second I signed with a manager, it was like 2 months later. I did a UFC deal, and the story of me like getting into the UFC, I ended up getting the UFC on a 7-day notice, like a super short notice fight, and I was literally, we were digging a trench, and I was like knee deep in mud. It was just a horrible job. It rained. We dug this foundation out, and then it rained, and I'm like, I had like 2 feet, and I'm just cussing up a storm. I'm having a bad day, real bad day, covered in mud. It's just piss and rain. And I go and check my phone, and I got like 10 missed calls from my manager. I call him back, and I'm like, what's up, dude? Like, someone died? He's like, dude, you're in the UFC. He's like, you're fighting next weekend. And I'm like, holy shit. I called my dad. I was like, Dad, I'm leaving this job site right now. I'm done, man. I'm done. He's like, what do you mean you're done? And I'm like, dude, I'm fighting the UFC next week. And he's like, yeah, you're done. Go get ready.
Get ready. All right. Proud sponsor of the show. Better damn well be Whiskey Bent BBQ. So this is a brand that Nicole and I started a little over a decade ago. You can find our rubs and seasonings in about 500 different retail locations throughout the U.S. Academy Sports, Select Ace Hardwares, and then obviously here at our store in Lakeland, Florida. If you want to go check it out, please feel free to. WhiskeyBentBBQ.com, and you can use my discount code OldBoyPodcast for 15% off. I was going to ask, what did your dad think about you taking up fighting?
He hated it. Initially, my mom was actually more supportive of fighting than my dad was. My dad did not. He wanted me to take over the family business. He did not want me to fight, but then he fell in love with it. Like later on, he saw how serious I was about it, and he came on board. But there was always that kind of thing, like, all right, is this really what you want to do? Is you sure this is what you want to do? Kind of situation. Like, I'm like, yeah, Dad. Yeah, I'm taking this shit as far as I can. I don't know where it's gonna end up. But yeah, I gotta run this. I gotta run this until the wheels fall off.
That's pretty awesome. And I take it since you were willing to always, take fights whenever they came up, this and that, you had to stay in relatively good shape. You knew with a couple of days you could be fight ready.
Yeah. I mean, I've kind of been that. I mean, I've been that way in my UFC career, maybe even to my detriment. You know what I mean? If there's an opportunity to fight, like there's a good chance the answer is yes. But I mean, now that I'm, fighting at a lower weight class, I'm fighting at 135. I need a little more time. I got to cut a lot of weight, be on a crazy diet, can't eat any good food.
What are you in these days? Fighting bantamweight. What do you like? Between fights, what do you like to walk around at? What do you feel comfortable walking around at?
I mean, realistically, I can get up to 170 pounds pretty easily, and I'm still like in pretty good shape.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm gonna make bantamweight consistently, like I have to stay around about 160, because if I get any bigger, it's just a nightmare. It's just like fight camp turns into like starvation camp. It's miserable for me. It's miserable for everybody around me because I'm pissed because I cannot eat.
Yeah. I mean, that's a ton to cut, and still try to. And I think what people don't understand is you're trying to cut weight, but while still retaining strength. You know what I mean? Like that's the hard part of it. It's not like you can just go on some limited cleanse and just start washing off, because you're going to wash out more muscle than you will fat. You know what I mean? Like that's that delicate balance that you guys do that's so impressive.
Yeah, you want to get super lean and just shed all the pounds you don't need, and you still want to be heavy, and
yeah.
At 135, I'm kind of a weight bully. Like I am bigger and stronger than just about everybody I fight. I fought at 145. I could do it. And in the future, I'll definitely, I want to be like the Cowboy Cerrone guy. Like you call me, I'm fighting, what I mean?
Yep.
And that just comes from, I stay in shape year round. Like I'm not, you know what I mean? Like out mess around. I'll go on a hunting trip and take a few days off here and there. But for the most part, you're not going to catch me, fat and out of shape sitting on the couch. Like I'm just not that guy. Like I don't have that like kind of laziness gene in me. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah, I kind of think of I'm pretty good friends with Chad Mendes, and I think about the story he said of, dude, I was out hunting, and he said I always just tried to stay in shape. He's like, and little do I know I'm going to get Conor on short notice. You know what I mean? He's like, and what a life-changing payday. You know what I mean? That if I'm not,
how it happens. That's always how it happens for us, dude. Really, like you want to go on a 4-day a waterfowl trip, or you want to go shoot axis deer in Texas or something? Well, guess what? Your manager's going to ring you up like halfway into that trip.
Yeah.
Fighting the week after.
Yeah, that speaking of it, it actually happened. Mendes was in duck camp with us this year in January, and he was supposed to stay the whole time, and he ended up having to bail like a day and a half early because he's like, hey, it looks like me and Eddie may do this bare knuckles thing again, and cool. if the date they're throwing around is the date they're throwing around, I need to get my ass home and start getting ready.
Yeah, I feel for him. I get it, dude. You just like that's the crazy thing. People think that like this is so regimented. Everybody thinks it's like when you're gonna fight. Like you have no clue.
Yeah,
you have no clue. You know what I mean? And that's the hardest part about the game is like you really so you need to kind of like you got to figure out a way to like relax and enjoy yourself and have some semblance of a normal life, but also you got to be ready to like jump in and kill somebody on a few days notice.
Yeah,
that's not an easy place to exist. It takes a special kind of messed up person to do that.
Yeah, and that we had Bryce Mitchell on the podcast, and we were talking about his Josh Emmett fight. And he just blatantly was like, dude, he's like, I was that where I wanted to be? No, he's like, 7 days notice, I was in as good a shape as I could have been. And he's like, look, you guys got to remember, like, we fight to feed our families, and you put a payday like that in front of me, I'm going to go do it. You know what I mean? Like, did I get knocked out? Was it one of the scariest knockouts ever? Probably.
Yeah.
But hey, that gave me an opportunity to do things that, that's a payday we had never seen before. You know?
The windows, the door's always closing, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not your career's not getting longer; it's getting shorter every single day.
Not
talk about like when's Jesus coming back? He's like, well, with sometime, know, and that's kind of how your career is. Like, when's it over? I'm like, I don't know, but it's gonna end. You know what I mean? It's gonna end, and like you want to take every single opportunity you can, and like the fans, they don't appreciate like what kind of balls it takes. Honestly, on a week's notice, knowing that you haven't done everything that you could do to prepare, and you got to go fight some killer that he's been grinding in the gym. Like, that is a terrifying thing, but you have to do it. You know what I mean? You have to do it.
And you talk about that window of career, and it sounds like you're already doing some of that with having a couple of Airbnbs, this and that. Like, I feel like the guys that during their career, when given the opportunity, that can set up, start to set up life after fighting.
Yep.
Once again, you know it's getting shorter, but at the same time, I feel like that transition of, hey, when this is done and I'm done with it on hopefully my terms, I've got this waiting for me. I feel like that's always been a better transition for folks than the door closing. It's like, holy fuck, what am I going to do with myself? I'm 30 years old or 35.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I already know, like, everyone's always like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'll probably start a restoration construction business. Like, there's no question. You know what I mean? Like, I've got the rental properties. I'll mess with real estate. I'll do all these things. Like, I love doing that stuff. You know what I mean? I hated doing it growing up, but I love doing it now. You know what I mean? Yeah. I was like outside last weekend, like on my days off, like building a pergola for my wife. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, he's like, I like this. This looks good. And I was like, okay, let's build it. I'm going to Home Depot right now. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
Like right now, I mean, I was like, probably as soon as this podcast is over, I'm going to go in the garage and like start building some patio furniture. You know what I mean? Like, I actually enjoy doing that stuff now, where I hated it when I was young. And I mean, I'm a blue collar boy through and through. Like, that's just who I'll always be. I don't have any intention of being, you know what I mean, one of these freaking dildos that, is online, talking shit constantly. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
I look at like, who really represents blue collar America? Well, it's the people that show up and work hard, keep their mouth shut. You know what I mean? They don't talk about all their problems. They're at the job site, rain, sleet, snow, or shine. You know what I mean? Because they got to provide for their family. And like, that's always, kind of who I wanted to be.
And they're usually also that guy, if you know them and, 1 o'clock in the morning, you have a blowout and nobody can come help. That's usually the phone number you want to call. You know what I mean? Because that's the guys that show up.
Yep. Amen.
Tell me real quick, I know you fought in several pro organizations and then, moved up to UFC. Obviously, besides the opportunity, like, was it a big, like, a huge jump up in talent? Was it like, oh my God, this is a whole other level? Like was it a big jump or was it kind of just a little more the same, just, better athletes?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you get into the UFC, I think the pressure builds up. You know what I mean? The whole experience is different. You know what I mean? There's more people watching you. It's more important, like, where people were it was kind of like the Wild West, but now you're in the show. Now all the eyes are on you. You know what I mean? And there's a pressure that comes with that. And I see a lot of guys, like super talented guys, that just cannot handle it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The anxiety gets to them, it beats them up. It's like, dude, you know how to fight. Like, you know how to fight. I've seen you like absolutely crush guys, and now you're on the big stage and like you can't handle it. So I mean, there is a lot that comes with it. The MMA fans are brutal human beings. Like, we deal with a lot of crap, and if you can't, you don't have thick skin and you're not tough, like, these people are going to beat you down and talk you into being, a coward. And that's the part that I think a lot of people don't realize is that, like, sure, you make it into the UFC, but then you have this whole world of shit that you got to deal with that, you might not be mentally prepared for it. And I've seen it like be absolutely crippling for a lot of people, but I keep my head down and go to work, so it hasn't really bugged me too much.
Well, and I think it's one of those things too where, that mentality of, being a big fish in a small pond. And when you go to that big pond and you're not nearly as big a fish, if you're not mentally strong, you can get mind fucked pretty easy, just the way you laid out.
Yeah. And then, there's what people don't realize is that, like, I'm an American fighter, but like the guys we're fighting, the guys that, like, I'm fighting a French kid. Mm-hmm. Like, he's probably the best guy in all of France, and then, you might fight some Russian guy who grew up on the side of a mountain, you know what I mean, who had to carry water every morning, or you might fight some Brazilian guy who grew up in the favelas who literally just is fighting so that he can have running water for his family. Like, I mean, if you're not tougher than that guy, like, you're not going to make it. You know what I mean? That guy's willing to die when he goes in there. So if you don't have that same mentality, like, you're in trouble, you know? And that's what I'm always telling these young kids. It's like, yeah, you're in here and like you're doing your pitter patter and your all your bullshit workouts, but dude, you need to be a dog. Like, you need to be an absolute savage if you're going to do this shit, because like it's not me that you got to beat up. It's like it's some kid whose family started. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to be an absolute maniac to do this at a high level. So it's a different thing, and the sport has grown so much, you know, that it kind of reached every country, every human being, you know. So like, really, we are kind of at the apex. You know, you're fighting the best dudes in the world, period. And like, if you're not mentally ready for that and all the shit that comes with it, like, there are other ways to make money, man. But, fighting's tough.
Yeah, to me, it's one of those, if you're more worried about making sure you get your tripod and your phone set up so you can capture your sparring for Instagram, you probably go get that ass whooped, old boy. You're heading in the right spot.
Yeah, because there's some kid that doesn't have a phone that's literally training on the dirt right now, and he doesn't give a flying shit about anything that anyone says. He's just trying to make some money, you know, and feed his family.
He's looking at UFC as the American dream, right? Like this is where I can go get freedom and prosperity, and it's all on my back. If I work hard enough, I can get there.
Yeah, and I know those kids. I mean, I meet them. I meet these kids. They come to the gym. They come here with absolutely nothing. Like, they saved up for a year to buy the plane ticket here. They get here and they have nothing. They don't know where they're going to stay. They don't know how they're going to eat. They got their training bag and that's it. And they come out here, and I'll tell you what, like, I've never seen more motivated human beings in my life. Like, I mean, it's a beautiful thing to see, because these guys will come out here with absolutely jack shit. They will do anything just to have food and a place to stay. And all they care about is the UFC. They you know what I mean? There's no like boundaries for them in terms of like, they don't care who they got to hurt. They don't care anything. You know what I mean? Like, they're very coachable. They're actually like great human beings. I mean, I will say like we're missing it. Like, as a country, we're missing it. Like, we are soft. Soft. And these other people, you know, everybody wants to shit on them, but like, if anybody's really willing to like sacrifice that much for a dream, like, how can you not respect that? How can you not respect what this dude is willing to do to make it happen? You know, because obviously you're not willing to fucking do that. You know what I mean? You want to be out at the bar, you want to take some cool TikTok videos and shit. Like, that's not what it's about, man. It's about winning fights and being a dog when it comes time. And like, these guys are it.
Yeah. You know, and I think back to like the original UFC, and that's kind of what it was, right? You had these guys from all these different walks of life. They were just like, I fucking love to fight, and I want to get in there and make the most of it. You know what I mean? And that was, one guy could be a truck driver, one guy could be Brazilian jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Just all walks of life. But it was like, dude, let's get in there and go after it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
One of the things, and I want to make sure I've got this right, and kind of just some of my research. You've never been knocked out in the UFC, right? You've given 7 knockouts, but you've never been knocked out, correct?
I have not.
I
would. I got a big head and a big chin. Honestly, I try not to get hit too much. I seem to be move my head a little bit. Trying to take those big shots. But yeah.
So speaking of kind of coming in, you know, going kind of through your UFC career, I mean, you had dominated so much, and then that one, I was curious, like, what was it like to fight during COVID? Any different, or how was it for you?
I was thankful to have a job, but no, it was horrible. Like, all the gyms are closed. You can't really train, but we were all dealing with it. You know what I mean? Like, everyone, like, you know, half the people are huge pussies, and everyone's scared to get COVID, and it's like, and then the other half are like, fuck all this. Like, I'll be at the gym. Like, we were to the point where we had to park like behind the gym, like walk like a quarter of a mile, right? So it parked all over the place. So like, it didn't look like we were gathering, blacking out the windows, just so that we could all get together and train. You know what I mean? I built a gym in my garage, and I would have guys over, and we would train. Man, it was a weird thing, you know, because I mean, kind of like the country, like half of everybody was terrified, and the other half is like, this is bullshit. Like, I don't give a shit if, like, you know what I mean. And I got COVID like 3 times. I was, you know, I was
holy shit, you're still here, Cody? Oh my
I know, I'm
gosh.
still alive, dude. Honestly, I was kicking it in 24 hours, man. I was like, I had COVID. I remember I told my mom. She was like, "What are you doing?" I was riding the bike, and I was in the garage, and she's like, "Oh, I thought you were normally." I didn't think, you know, you'd answer the phone. You're normally at the gym at this time. I was like, "Yeah, I can't go to the gym right now. I got COVID." She's like, "Cody, you can't work out while you got COVID." And I was like, "Mom, I feel pretty good. Like, I think I'll probably go back to the gym tomorrow if they'll let me." You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I got a cold. I'm not just sweat it out. I'll be fine.
Yep. Sometimes people forget that old just sweating out a cold, man. And to me, that's one of the best ways to do it.
Oh, the only way. It's the only way.
So, you know, I know you made the move over to Extreme Couture. When did you make that, and what was some of the thought process behind it?
Well, it was, you know, I was training and fighting in Michigan, and there was really nobody that was quite as motivated as me. You know, like, you want to be successful and operate at a high level, you need people that are hungry just like you. You know what I mean? Chasing the same thing you are. And
challenge you every day. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking around and I'm like, I am the best guy in this gym. You know, I'm the guy that's trying to make it happen. And that's a hard thing to do. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Be the most motivated, be the hardest working dude every single day in the gym, you know, and I'd been out Extreme Couture before. I knew, you know, the kind of talent that was out here. And I came out, I'm like, you know, if I'm really going to do this long term, like, I didn't want to leave home. I mean, a lot of my, you know, best friends, my family, everyone, I didn't want to move out here, but the reality is like, if I wanted to do this at a high level, I had to be around other people that were the same as me. And then, you know, the UFC PI is out here. If you ever get a chance to see this facility, it's absolutely incredible, man. Like, if you ever just let me know, I'll give you a tour. But it's like, I mean, they're really physical therapy, nutrition, strength conditioning, like top of the line. You know what I mean? It's like pretty much our benefits package as a UFC fighter. These people take really good care of you. They really care. It's an amazing place. So I mean, that place, you know, after, you know, going there and seeing it, seeing what they could do for me, I'm like, this is a no-brainer, man. I got to be in Vegas.
Well, and once again, it kind of gets back to something we were discussing earlier is, you know, that window of the career is only like this, right? Yeah. So it's not like you're saying hey, babe, we're up and moving to Vegas for the rest of our life. Like, when that part of your career gets done, you guys can look at, hey, do we want to go back home? Do we, whatever you want to do. But
I'm going somewhere. I'm not staying here. all these pussies from California came out here and just ruined this place. When I first moved here, I actually loved Vegas. I had a great time during COVID. There's all kinds of cool shit you can do outside of, like, going to the strip and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then all these liberals from freaking California came out here and just absolutely wrecked this place, man. I'm honestly ready to leave it now. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm a country boy trapped in the city right now, but I do have a little escape from my place in Utah. But,
that you were reading my mind, because that's where I was going to go next. Is I know you like getting away to Utah, getting up in the mountains, and then, you know, Utah's not a bad trek from Vegas at all.
3 hours. It's fine.
Yeah, where do you like going? You like getting in Moab, or what's kind of your joint there?
So, like, the Duck. I have a place in Duck Creek Village. It's just this little town on the side of the mountain, and it's just ATVs and fishing, hunting. Like, it is like my escape from this place. And, like, every time I go up there, I'm like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. And, you know, honestly, I'm like, why am I going back to the city with all the traffic and all the bullshit? You know, like, but fighting demands it. So here I am.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool, because I mean, that's one, like, I didn't know jack shit about Utah until I went to work for Traeger about 8 years ago, and man, the first time I went out there, I was like, dude, this place is sick. You know what I mean? Like, and then as I got to know more of Utah outside of Salt Lake City, you know what I mean? And, like, really getting to some of the more old boy, small town areas. Like, I love there. I love, like, Evanston, Wyoming. Like, you talk about old boy as shit. Like, Evanston's one of those perfect ones where you've got kind of the creature comforts of, a couple places to go get groceries, this and that, but you go 5-10 minutes outside of it, and like you're right where you want to be.
You're in the sticks, yeah. I mean, there are still some untouched, beautiful places like that in the U.S. Man, you just gotta look a little harder for them.
No, I completely agree. Proud sponsor of the show, Trollco Clothing. Love what the brand's about. It's all about supporting that blue-collar worker. You know them for their trademark shirt and hat, dirty hands, clean money. It's not just a slogan. It is a lifestyle. Go visit trollcoclothing.com and use my discount code, OldBoyPodcast, for 15% off. I wanted to talk a little bit about the fight you have coming up. I mean, it's been a year. You're coming off that one. Tell us a little bit about the bicep injury, how it happened, and having that rehab and then preparing for the fight. Do you kind of look at the opportunity to fight through a different lens, since you were that guy that would fight every 4 to 6 weeks if they would let you, and then having to take a year off? I mean, that had to be a real drain and just hard to deal with.
Yeah, it sucked. I mean, I'm not the guy. I'm not like I said earlier. Like, I'm not a guy that does well sitting on the couch. You know what I mean? And like, this forced me to slow down. It's the first major surgery I've ever had. Going under and waking up and your arm's in a sling. It sucked. I mean, it was something I do every day. I'd just thrown a body shot and my arm just snapped. And I heard it and I looked at it and it didn't look right. And I walked over to my coach and I'm like, dude, does my arm look weird? And he's like, dude, you need to go see the trainers. Like, you need to get this. Yeah, up at the elbow. Yeah. So it kind of shot up just a little bit, but it was still like hanging on by a thread. So I was convinced that, like, I was, because I was going to fight in 4 weeks. I just signed a contract. I mean, the fight was just about to be announced, and I was at the gym sparring. First round of this fight camp, this 4-week fight camp, blew my arm up, and they were like, dude, you need to get this repaired. Like, your arm will never be like the same. And I'm like, it's my moneymaker. Like, I need this. So I immediately went and got surgery. Obviously, that whole process is scary. You don't know, like, am I gonna return to 100%? I'm lucky that I'm here. In Michigan, I'm not sure I would have, had the resources to make sure that I got a full recovery. But, I was doing physical therapy like it was a job. I was there every single day. I was, like, as soon as I was able, I was running. And I'll tell you what, not being able to do something really makes you appreciate, the opportunities that you have, because I think I looked at fighting so much like just a job. Like, I was just going to work, and a lot of times you don't really appreciate that job that you have until you lose that job. And then you're like, oh, well, damn, really wish I could go to work today, and yeah, I sat on the couch and had a long time to think about, what I want to do next and how I want to approach fighting. And I'm just a lot more grateful and thankful, for the opportunities now. It's not like I'm dreading going to the gym, man. I cannot wait. And, if I hadn't torn my bicep, would I have that mentality? Probably not. And I mean, so in a lot of ways, I'm kind of thankful it happened.
And hearing that, it kind of reminds me of, I remember about towards the end of 2019, I had been traveling, doing Traeger events for, 200, 225, 1 year, 250 days a year.
That's a lot.
And I remember going, man, I'm kind of getting end of 19 going into 2020. And I'm like, man, I think I may be getting kind of burnt out. Like, do I want to do this? And I'd keep going back and I'm like, dude, there's 1,000 guys in the barbecue world that would change places with you right now and never bitch about it. You know what I mean? But I'm like, man, a little break would be nice. And then COVID happens. And I'm like, dude, awesome. Gonna get like 2 or 3 weeks at home. Everything will be good. And we'll keep rolling. And then you go like 4 months without doing an event. And I'm like, fuck this. I need to start calling some people. Like, I know I've got some boys out there that don't give a shit about this. And then, like, the next event I went and did was a event with a bunch of SEALs. And, they didn't give a shit about COVID. Yeah, and so there's like 250 of us out there raising a whole shit ton of money, for some some lost veteran families, and it was like, okay, you know. But I went to that event, and like I was so happy. I was never tired. I didn't care that they were 18-hour days. You know what I mean? And I've never kind of felt that way again, because I knew what it felt when that got taken away from me. Like, dude, I never want to lose this opportunity. Like, this is a fucking blast. Like, I'm getting to live my dream.
Yeah, amen to that, dude. I 1000% think we understand each other on this.
So you gotta be you gotta be fucking jacked up for June 8th, old boy. Like, looking at it now and thinking about it. Like, tell us a little bit about your opponent. I know you said he's probably maybe the best bantamweight coming out of France. Like, when you prepare for a fight like that, do you watch a lot of his stuff? Is that more of your trainer watches it and kind of helps you get ready for it? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, so some guys don't watch any film. Some guys don't want to know. They don't want to know. They put it all on their coaches. I like watching film with my coach. Mm-hmm. And then we can kind of formulate a game plan, kind of see what this guy, you know, what he's about, what, and then we got to look in the gym and be like, okay, so who can give you this look? You know what I mean? So you can figure out like what you need to do in this fight. And like this fight, this time around, like that's another beautiful thing about Vegas is there's so many different athletes here. Like, you can find like the exact body type you need to train with, you know, and I did. And yeah, I'm ready to smoke this dude. Yeah, I mean, he's tough, southpaw. He's got crazy long arms, but I mean, I might have to eat a few, but I'm gonna get after him.
Where do you prefer to keep in general? I'm not talking specifically about this match, but where do you feel most comfortable? Do you feel most comfortable on the ground or standing and throwing?
I mean, I think people want to see you stand and throw, right? I know, like, I was known as a wrestler in most of my career, and maybe I should get back to it because, you know, I was pretty polished when I was wrestling guys more. But I like to strike. I like kickboxing, boxing. I never really wanted to be pinned as a wrestler. You know, I wanted to be pinned as a boxer, but it just so happens the easiest way to beat guys up is to just hold them on the ground, beat down a little bit. You know, it's a lot safer. You know, It's a lot safer, and it's miserable for them. You know, another man holding you down, beating your ass, like that's a pretty demolishing thing. You know, it's one thing to get beat up in a kickboxing match. It's a whole other thing to get thrown on the ground and have some dude just mauling you. So, I mean, I should wrestle more. You know, I think I should wrestle more. You know, I got away from it, and you know, this kid, you know, I think if he starts giving me some problems on the feet, you know, I'm gonna be a wrestler.
Hey, and it's always nice. I gotta think it's always nice to have that to fall back on too, right, Cody? Like, hey, I want to stand and throw, and if I can dominate him there, I will. But you know, if I you know start to want to change the game up a little bit, I'm so fucking confident in what I can do on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at fighting at the highest level, everybody can wrestle. They can wrestle well. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, if you're the best kickboxer in the world and you go against a mediocre wrestler, that mediocre wrestler is going to whoop your ass. Yeah. You know, wrestling is kind of the absolute foundation for fighting. I mean, look at all these Dagestani guys, Khabib and Islam, all these dudes. These dudes can wrestle, like, really, really wrestle at a high level. And they're terrifying. You know what I mean? It's not just like you're like, oh, this dude's going to come out and clean my clock. It's like, no, this guy is going to, like, systematically, like, break me down and beat the living shit out of me on the ground. And that is a horrible, like, prospect of, like, I mean, getting held down, you know what I mean? Your hands are tied up and some dude's just pounding you in the face. Like, not a good way to go. You know what I mean? Doesn't look good for anybody.
Well, and then because of it, like, when you're on the bottom, I got to think you're expending so much energy to try to get out of this fucking compromising situation, and you get your ass whooped by another man.
Yeah, just knock me out, dude.
Yeah, just call it good.
It's how you can square in the forehead and see what happens, you know what I mean? Because, like, getting held down and beat up is a really, really horrible. I mean, as a fighter, I can tell you, like, there is really nothing worse than like, a man, like, dominating you on the ground. It's a horrible experience. And, like, those Dagestani guys, like, started when they were, like, 4 years old learning how to do that. Yeah. You know, that's just, we haven't quite caught up yet.
Yeah, and probably if they got their ass whipped like that on the ground, it was the second worst ass whipping they took of the day after their dad or their trainer or whoever got done with them for taking that ass whipping.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, I mean, we're talking earlier about hard men, like, they'll give you hard men. Like, the Dagestanis, like, the real, like, they're, like, legit mountain men. Like, these dudes, like, grew up in a village. all together in a village. They're all their families are connected. And like they've lived together and trained together their whole lives. I mean, like we really can't in America like fathom like what these guys did or like what they're about.
Yeah.
And that's why like we don't really see eye to eye, because they like see us and they're like, you guys are pussies. Like really, they do.
Well, I think it's a lot like, I played baseball all throughout life, and I kind of look at that as almost like what the Dominicans did to baseball, right? Like,
Yep.
We're out there practicing 3-4 hours a day, thinking we're really doing some shit, and these kids are getting up at 8 a.m, not going to school, and they're just working all day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's how all these 14 and 15-year-old
Dicks.
baseball prodigies come about. I mean, it's very similar.
Yeah. Same thing.
So I got to think, after chatting with you, you probably enjoy, and you just loving to throw and enjoying some guys squaring off. You had to enjoy that Holloway-Gaethje fight just about as much as I did.
Man, I was there live. That was amazing. And I love Justin Gaethje. You know what I mean? You can't not like Max Holloway either. It's just like it's like two guys, and like when they announced the fight, I'm like,
yeah,
you love them both, but you're like, this is gonna be an awesome fight. Like for a fact, these guys both bring it every single time. Yeah.
And then that last 10 seconds, holy shit, man!
Point to the ground. That's one of the most gangster things I've ever seen in the cage in my life. Justin Gaethje, dude can put you out in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? This dude can knock you out from anywhere. Like he's a bad dude, and you're winning. You're winning the fight. And instead of just coasting that last 10 seconds, you point at the ground and you're like, hey, I'm going to swing it out with like one of the best knockout artists in the world.
Yep.
Gangster.
And to me, like, that's just like, we've known we've had a good fight, but let's put an exclamation point on this mug. You know what I mean? Like,
that changed 300. That changed that whole card. The place I was there was kind of dying out. People were, starting to hear crickets, booing. And then that fight happened, and everybody was just like, everybody was pumped up. You know what I mean? Like it really did like save the fight. I mean, those guys deserved that bonus they got.
And then the last thing anybody else wanted to do was go behind that.
Like, I didn't know about
that
fight up.
No, you can't. But I just thought that was just and what I've picked up from the research and you and just chatting with you. I mean, I was just like, you know what? I could see Cody enjoying that just as much as I did, because that's just dudes getting after it.
Just knowing what kind of balls it takes. You know what I mean? You feel like, and then Justin Gaethje, he busted his nose, like flattened his nose. Yeah. Like in that first round with that spinning back kick, and then he's still coming forward throwing shots. Like, I mean, for the people at home, do you know how bad it hurts to get hit in the face after your nose has been shattered? I mean, it is a crippling pain. And this dude fought 20 more minutes with that on his face, and he's still what a tough dude. It's really, really crazy, man. Some people they're just built different. He is one of those guys.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, I've had the opportunity to get to know Justin and cook for him a few times, and meet his team and his family, and I knew the dude was tough, but there was a whole other level of respect after that one. You know what I mean? And for Max too, like you said, how many guys would try to clinch or just back up and throw some faint punches the last 10 seconds, but to put it all on the line and take a chance of losing that decision, that's crazy.
Yeah, I would. I mean, like that's the smart thing to do. That's what you should do, right?
Yeah, that's fighting.
Get out, and like, I mean, maybe not now. Maybe I'm pointing at the ground and be like, I'm gonna channel some Max Holloway here, and like, let's do this. Let's figure it out. Yep.
No, that's it. Yeah, it was cool, and I think it'll be one of those fights that they'll talk about 20 years from now. It's almost like that. God dang it, I'd say you never forget it, and I just forgot it. Was it Forrest Griffin, Matt Hughes?
Oh, Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonner.
Stephan Bonner, that's who. Yeah, Bonner. God dang, that was another just ridiculous. And wasn't that the first Ultimate Fighter finale?
I think it might have been, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, once again, just another fight where you're like, somebody lost, but they really didn't, because they've proven what a badass they are.
Yeah. yeah, you're willing to go to those places. Like, yeah, you don't lose that fight.
No, not at all. So talk to me a little bit about, leading up to a fight week. You've got the fight coming up on the 8th. So when will you get into Louisville, and kind of how do you kind of manage yourself to make weight, be in the right mindset, be strong? Like, kind of what are those, once you get into town, when do you get in town, and then how does it look?
So I'll leave here Monday morning. I'll get there Monday afternoon. I mean, normally we're required to check in on Tuesday. Like, we have to be there on Tuesday. I like to get there a little early, just get acclimated. You know what I mean? Like, I know where I'm at. Yeah. And I mean, for me personally, like, the big looming, dooming thing that's happening is, like, I'm cutting weight pretty much all week. You know what I mean? I got way too, like, I'm not eating a lot. I'm focused on my workouts. Obviously, we have interviews and all this stuff to do. And, I mean, for me, I like to treat it like it's another day. You know what I mean? I don't like to put a whole lot of pressure on myself. Like, it's a fight. I've been in a million fights. I'm just going to make weight, have a nice dinner with, hopefully some members of my family and my team. And then we're going to go scrap. We're going to go figure it out. You know what I mean? Not complicate things. Like, fighting in life are complicated enough. Like,
yep.
This thing, I can control the outcome of it. So, when the time comes, I will. But it's a crazy experience, man. And I talked to a lot of other guys that fight, and I'm like, dude, do you remember, like, moments in fights, or do you remember, like, the days leading up to the fight? And everyone says no. Like, no, dude, I couldn't. You know what I mean? Like, you really have to, like, go back and, like, really think, like, how did that weight cut go, or what did we do? You know what I mean? Like, everybody else, like, there's pictures and, but you don't really remember. The first thing I want to do after I fight is, like, I want to watch the fight, because, like, I really have no idea what happened. It really puts you in, like, you're in, like, a different place. You know what I mean? Like, everything is happening around me, but you're not really there. You're kind of in this weird, like, flow state where, and I've actually talked to a lot of guys in the military, and they say the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, after our mission's over, they're like, what happened? You know what I mean? Like, they're really like, I don't really know, where I went in those times, but, yeah, it's a whirlwind. I mean, there's no other thing like it. I mean, I can't compare fighting to anything.
Well, and almost hearing the way you describe that, like, it makes your muscle memory and preparation so key, right? Yeah. Because you're not cognitively thinking, you're more in the moment, relaxing. Your mind's went somewhere else. You're just in this place. Yeah. And I got to think reflexes and muscle memory and just trusting your training is super powerful.
Yeah. Fighting happens so fast. It's like the saying is, like, if you're thinking about the fight, you already lost, because it's happening, like, as you're thinking about it. So you just gotta kind of check out, like, that's why, everything, you win the fight in the gym. You don't win the fight on fight night, right?
Very true.
You got to put the work in. You got to put the work in the gym to make sure that, in those moments, like, good, bad, whatever, you react the way you need to react. And that's another thing. Everyone's just like, well, why didn't you just do this? It's like, well, maybe you didn't train that. So why in that moment would, like, that just, like, right, I need to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, no, if you didn't train it, like, it's not just gonna pop out of your ass in that moment. Like, that's not how it works.
I'm not gonna knock the rust off in the middle of the second round.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
White ball.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. And you better have that shit squared away. You better plan A, B, and C, and you better know how to make that shit happen in those moments.
All right, so tell me, you got any fishing or well, hunting? We're a little out right now. Any fishing planned after this fight?
Yeah, I'm going up to the cabin in Utah, and I'm gonna literally get a case of beer and sit on the river and fly fish for a couple of days. I've already got it scheduled.
I love it, oh boy.
Oh man, I'm gone.
Love it. Hey, and be nothing better to enjoy those beers with a victory. What are you saying for us? How do you think this goes?
I think I put him down in the second. I've been saying that a lot. I really do. I think the first round, it'll take me a little time to figure him out. You know what I mean? Because I think he's going to present some challenges, like with his reach and with distance management. I think he's pretty slick, man. But I think once I touch him one time, and without sounding like a creep, I'm gonna touch him again. And I'm gonna keep touching him until he goes to sleep. You know what I mean?
Yep. Oh man, I absolutely love it. I'm really looking forward to watching the fight. Real quick before we let you go, I don't know if you. First thing I wanted to ask you is, and we kind of do this with all the guests that come on, but now that you've been on the Old Boy podcast, you understand what we talk about a little bit. Do you have one or two people you'd recommend we reach out to and have come on?
Yeah, actually, you know, my buddy Danny, I think would be a good one.
Okay.
Dan's an interesting dude, Hawaiian, great dude, solid family man. I think he did a lot of construction too growing up. I grew up in the same way. His dad was a SEAL. Very, very interesting, cool dude.
Yes.
And then I would love for you to talk to Sean Strickland, man, but he's all over the place.
He is, but he would be a hell of a lot of fun to talk to. You're the first person to tell me that on the show. You're the fourth person that's told me when I include text messages. They're like, dude, you should get Strick on. Like he would be great. So
he's a handful, man. Once you get him on a rant, but honestly, Sean and I are pretty tight. I mean, we like a lot of the same things. Like he's fighting, you know, this weekend.
Yes.
So I hope he tears this Brazilian's head off, and then him and I are gonna go waste some money and shoot a bunch of ammo in the desert after.
I love it. That sounds like a good ass time. Well, I will tell you this: if you're worried about me handling him, I did handle Bryce Mitchell for an hour interview, and we
Bryce
talked
is a wild animal, man,
bro. And we talked about exercise and demons, and it was yeah. We went to we went to some places. Look, if you don't have anything to do on that flight from Vegas to Louisville,
I'm gonna check it out.
Download that episode.
Check it out. I mean, I feel like I'm like the PG version of these. I'm vanilla, and these guys are fucking rainbow sherbet. These guys are out.
No, dude, I've loved the conversation, and it's, you know, I just love the type of guy you are. You know, you want to get in there, you want to square off, you want to have a good time, and you're just blue collar to the core, and a day's worth of work doesn't scare you, it motivates you, and I think we just need more of that in this world.
Yeah, amen, man. We need more men in this world, especially in this country.
Absolutely, brother. I completely agree with you, and I love that statement. Before we let you go, tell folks where they can keep up with you and what's going on, Cody. And if you got any sponsors or any of your training partners, anybody you want to shout out, feel free to.
I mean, I give all the glory to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to putting on a show for some hometown fans next week. If you want to follow me, you better get to know me, because I'm shit on social media, man. I am that guy. I'm living the film age. I do my best, and everybody's always pushing me to do it, but the reality is like I'd rather just work, not film my work. I actually got a video that I'm gonna put out here in a little bit of me building this pergola, because someone like basically forced me to do that. But I'm trying. I'm working on being better about that stuff, man. But I really am a caveman. I really just I want to go fight people and then just be left the fuck alone. You know what I mean?
Dude, I totally get it. I'm one of those too that like, I just like living in the moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I just, you know, if I'm at an event or I'm working or whatever, like just let me be in the moment of working, or let me be in the moment of having this great conversation.
Yeah, I don't gotta film shit to enjoy it. You know
right, exactly. Like sometimes it's like, oh my God, dude, you went to that and you didn't get any pictures? I was like, no, but let me tell you about the fucking conversation I had with so-and-so. It was amazing. Right. Like, to me, that's where when you get the opportunity to maybe be in rooms you shouldn't be in, or you never thought. Yeah.
That's real life.
Absolutely. Living it, brother. Well, hey, man, I will tell you what, you definitely have a new fan in me, and I hope with all these listeners, they're going to feel exactly the same way. Cody, you're an old boy. You're exactly what we like to get behind and support, man, and let's go ahead and get that second round knockout June 8th, brother.
Let's do it, brother.
All right, man. Hey, guys, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Cody as much as I did. Cody, thanks again for the time. Until next time, guys, take care. Thank you so much for listening to the Old Boy Podcast. Please subscribe, like, set your notifications, whatever you got to do to make sure you're getting the latest episodes. Also, feel free to go back, whether it be YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Get some of the past episodes, check those out, and always feel free to check out our socials, Old Boy Podcast. Thank you so much.